Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome, everyone, to Project Management Office Hours, the #1 live project management radio show in the U.S., maybe the world, broadcasting to you from the Phoenix Business Radio X studios in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, Joe Puz, PMO Joe, and for the next hour, we'll be talking project management with our special guests. Of course, we're very grateful as well for our sponsors. We have PM Master Prep as a sponsor of our show, and Scott Payne has been such a great partner with us, and we're excited to have him and his team. And they offer some great solutions for helping you prepare for the PMP exam. I'd like to give Scott a moment to share a little bit about his organization.
If you're studying for the PMP exam, how excited are you to memorize the 756 pages of the PMBOK? You see, when I was studying, I realized that cramming facts in my head wasn't only not going to help me pass, but it wasn't going to make me a better project manager. So I abandoned what the experts told me, and I created a method that delivered an above-target score without memorizing a thing. You heard me, memorizing nothing. The power of my method is in 3 simple changes that help you make and cement all the connections you need to ace the exam's situational questions. I've distilled my method into a book, e-course, simulator, and training class that transforms how you or your team learn PMP. My name is Scott Payne, and I want you to be successful in the PMP exam. Go to pmmasterprep.com and learn how my PMP training method works, and use the code PMOJOE to receive 20% off every product that will make you battle ready for the PMP exam.
So it's great to have Scott and the PM Master Prep team on board with us. And of course, what an amazing offer they have for the listeners, 20% off all of their services. Visit pmmasterprep.com and use promo code PMOJOE. Of course, the PMO Squad is also a sponsor of ours, and they're the home of the Purpose-Driven PMO. And the Purpose-Driven PMO empowers people to deliver results. Please visit www.thepmosquad.com to learn more about all the services that the PMO Squad offers. I also want to mention there's an upcoming event here in the local Phoenix community that the Phoenix PMI chapter is hosting. It's their inaugural military outreach golf event. That's going to be on September 27th at 7 a.m. at the Falcon Dunes Golf Club out near Luke Air Force Base. After the golf tournament, Eric Wright and I will be speaking to the members who attend. We're going to be talking about VPMMA, the Veteran Project Manager Mentoring Alliance, proudly wearing my VPMMA shirt today. So you can go out and register for that golf event at phx-pmi.org. Register for the golf event, and we hope to see you out there. Should be a lot of fun. Also going to be a lot of fun is our show today. Super excited to have with us special guests Colin Ellis and Debra Hildebrand. Welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Great to be here. By the way, I thought VP MMA was some kind of, cage project management fighting thing. You had me interested for a minute there, and then I was like, oh, no. Okay.
Now you're not interested?
Hey,
nah.
We all know how project management always ends in a brawl, right? So it's...
The best projects always start with a fight, Joe. Yeah.
That's right. So Colin is joining us live from Australia. That's why we're on at 3 today as opposed to our normal 11 time. We didn't want him to get up at 4 a.m. because that might have started a brawl. So local time about 8 a.m. out in Australia. So Colin, thanks for joining us, and then take a moment to introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for adjusting the time. I really do appreciate it. Although I would have joined at 4, I was just getting in from a night out. So I am a professional project management speaker and a best-selling author. Former project manager myself. I worked my way up the ranks, project manager, program manager, PMO manager, and headed up large project departments in government and in the private sector. And I did that for 20 years, and I now travel around the world. I shedding light on what needs to change in project management in an honest way, but also making sure that we have a few laughs along the way.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, and also the book, the project book, The Complete Guide to Consistently Delivering Great Projects is an awesome read. I'm in the middle of it right now. thank you for my copy, and can't wait to talk a little bit more about that today as we keep going.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe.
And Debra Hildebrand, please take a moment to say hello to the listeners.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me. My name's Debra Hildebrand. I have a background in management consulting, about 20 years of consulting in mostly the public sector. Now I do a lot of training, project management training for corporations. And I also teach at a couple universities, University of Washington for their business school, and also Stanford University. I teach project management courses, mostly introductory project management courses.
Awesome. Thank you for being with us. And Debra and I know each other for a while now and actually working on a top secret project at the current time.
Very top secret.
But in the next few months, I think we'll be coming out with something related to the purpose-driven PMO that hopefully everybody will be interested in knowing more about. So let's talk some project management. Colin, again, thanks for joining us from Australia and your book. And as I was reading the book, something that was really interesting for me was project leader versus project manager. And I'm wondering, I think to prove we're a live show, I think we just dropped Colin, so we're going to get him back. But Debra, let's chat about that, right? From your experiences as well, project leadership versus project management.
Right. So when I think of a manager versus a leader, a manager would be someone who checks off the lists and makes sure the tasks are done. A leader is somebody who is leading the team and supporting their team and being a good example, right? Not only making sure that things are getting done, but making sure that the team gets what they need and that they are cohesive and collaborative, all those good things that leaders do.
Yeah, and I think about that as well, right? Just early in my career, I was probably more project manager. Mm-hmm. I was following the checklist. I was doing what needed to get done to make sure the progress of the project was marching along. But I wasn't taking into account the team, right? Yeah. And how to best utilize the team and how to motivate the team properly. And a lot of those skill sets and techniques come into play with experience because now you're in more of a leadership position.
Right.
And to me, I think that's kind of where the separates the good versus the great comes in.
Right. And that's why I appreciate the work that Colin's doing because, a lot of people just think about getting things done and checking off the lists and not about, where the team's at. So I think now as project managers, we need to start being project leaders. And reading Colin's book is a great way to start and, studying up on leadership and taking leadership training, communication training, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, in our last show, thinking about that, right, we had Nicholas Breeson on, who has helped with his partner create a tool called Stereo to capture surveys and feedback and a continuous feedback loop for both the team and for sponsors. And then also Catherine Halpin was on, who uses CVI, the Core Value Index, to measure the types of personalities and characteristics that we as individuals respond to. Past guests, Belinda Goodrich and Steve Fulmer, and upcoming guest Barbara Troutline, all of these folks are all more on the soft side of project management, which helps us be better at leadership, right? And in our industry, all of the training seems to be geared towards the technical side, the management of it, right?
How to develop a schedule, how to build a budget, how to do earned value management. Yeah. And, for me, the biggest turn in my career was when I did a 360-degree assessment. You ever done one of those?
I have.
Right.
Yep, sometimes
it just
that's
opened
painful.
my eyes completely. Well, it was very painful, but it opened my eyes completely. And then, I had to start thinking about delegating, not doing everything myself, thinking about what my teammates needed and what they were good at. And so that was a big turning point for me. So
I'm curious a little bit right here. As you mentioned, you teach and instruct at Stanford and University of Washington.
Right.
So the people you're teaching are trying to learn about project management. How do you do that, right? I mean, because I'm assuming it's a combination of the technical and the non-technical. Can you explain a little bit more about the details of how the coursework is?
So the first course I taught at the University of Washington was for the business school. And when I started, it was about 12 students. And within 3 years, I built it up to, 2 sections with a waiting list. So,
oh, wow.
And that was mostly because we didn't just do the technical coursework. We actually brought the community into the classroom, and they had to learn. That was my biggest goal, was that they had to learn how to deal with stakeholders. So I put the students into teams, and they had to work with an organization on a project. So I would bring in the organizations, and they would pick a project, and then they would have to spend the quarter using what they learned with that organization. And so the biggest challenge for them was communicating with the organization, getting that work done, working as a team. The rest of it, the stuff they were learning, building a schedule and doing the scope, things like that, wasn't a big problem. But learning to deal with the organization, the people in the organization, and working as a team as well were their biggest challenges. So,
and these aren't PMP prep courses,
No.
right? This is a full-blown and credit-driven class that helps them towards their degree program, correct?
Right. So the PMP courses, which I teach those as well, so I don't have anything against them.
Yeah.
But they're for more experienced project managers who need to pass a test, right?
Sure.
And learn how PMI wants them to manage projects. And so what I train, even when I train corporate training, I do a specialized training course. So I learn how the business works. And then I have a standardized course, and then I tweak it to match that organization and how they do their work and their culture, obviously. But it is a course on how to practically manage a project. It's not a PMP exam prep course.
And what's... we had Dr. Harold Kersner on the show.
Love him.
Yeah. So I don't know, it's probably a year ago or so. And we had talked about the challenge we have is nobody's teaching project management in high school, and it's in some universities, but it's certainly not widespread like an MBA. Why not, right? I mean, we need this. And he had shared that when they had started doing some training, or he was approached about doing training in universities, the problem was the instructors didn't have enough experience,
Right.
and they were sitting in a room full of people who had more experience than they had.
Mm-hmm.
How have you found anything? Obviously, you have experience in your backgrounds in that, but others within the industry or at your universities, is there anything similar to that?
I've found that project management in the universities is mostly in the continuing studies program. So my class was actually part of a bachelor's degree at the University of Washington, and there was only one class on project management. I thought there should have been more. It's actually a topic that's more advanced, even for business students. But I think at least one class, like the one we have at the University of Washington, so they can get exposed to it at the undergraduate level. But I think once people get into the master's level, they should have more choices as far as project management courses. Really, like City University of Seattle, which is mostly an online school, is really the only place where I've seen like a full-blown bachelor's and master's degree in project management. The instructors, like you said, a lot of them are PhDs who, go through school themselves and never really get any work experience. And since there aren't any programs for project management in the universities, then they don't get trained in it either. So yeah, that is a huge problem. And I've seen it become larger just because of the demand. So for instance, at the University of Washington, the project management program is the largest program in the continuing studies department. So, and I mean, by far the largest. I think data analytics is catching up with us.
Yeah.
And again, just because there's really no undergraduate or graduate programs in data analytics either. So yeah, I agree with Kersner. There probably is a lack of skill set in the professors in teaching project management.
Yeah, we think about that, right? A majority of all the other professions out there, they get training through the university system, and then they come up into junior type positions and gain experience, and then eventually move on to a full-blown career, right? And they get experience. But in project management, you come into those profession usually from some other degree, and you are put into a position maybe as a project coordinator or business analyst, but you're not. How do they expect you to run a project? Right. You've had no training.
I love that. Yeah, it's very true.
But where we can get some benefit is a lot of the university systems do teach leadership. Right. And they do teach communication. Right. My undergraduate degree was in communication. My master's degree is in communication. Those type of skills aren't taught necessarily in the CPAs of the world, right? Right. So how can we take the diversity of what we're getting out of college and universities, maybe non-traditional project management courses like communication, and help build up the profession, right, the career, to see how to grow with that?
The way that I've seen that done is you do a mix of a business degree with a project management core track to it. Yeah. So if you do like a business administration degree and you're getting all those courses like leadership and communication and things like that, you can add on a project management minor to that, and then that way you're getting an overall well-balanced education, and you're not just getting project management, but you're also getting the business side and the leadership and the communication, which is so important. I mean, as a project manager, I'm a way better project manager because I understand business. I have an MBA, right? So for me, I think that it shouldn't be just project management. It should be a mixture of the two.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense, and I can appreciate that and think back on my own career, how I've benefited from different roles I've been in to assist me with project management. And just for the listeners out there, an update on where we're at with Colin and why he magically disappeared from the show. Not that we're anti-Australian or anti-remote guest, but the internet in the building has gone down. So again, sometimes the joys of a live show is that you have to deal with technology in the world. So we certainly apologize for that. And we're working to get that back up so that we can get Colin back online with us. So until then, we're going to have fun here with Debra. So that's okay.
Woohoo!
Yeah, absolutely.
Joe and I always have fun.
So let's talk a little bit here about the PMP, because you also mentioned that you do some training for that. Right. Kind of over the span of your career, what's the evolution been like for that PMP training? I think back to when I got it, it was like, you have to get this because it's required. We went through a recession, and then everybody was going to get it because they had downtime. Where are we at now, and what's been your experience with that?
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of industry you're in. I hear from my students, at Stanford in the Silicon Valley, that a PMP is not something you want to get if you want to work in Silicon Valley, because that, the startups there, they associate that with somebody who is too rigid. And so they want somebody more of like a Scrum Master certification, something like that, where they're more flexible. But I still see a really large demand for PMPs. I think that employers want to see that because it does show that you've made an effort to get educated. You have a lot of experience, because now you have to show, I don't know how many hours it is, 5,000 hours if you don't have an undergraduate degree in as a project manager. And then if you have a degree, it's 3,500 hours. So it does show that you have the experience and that you've put forth an effort in your education to get that certification. So I think there is still a really large demand for that, especially, like government is still very predictive, traditional based. So PMPs, and, when I do my corporate training, I'm always so surprised that they don't want agile training. They want the traditional predictive training. And I said, well, the work, so data analysts, I do training for data analysts. I've done that a few times. And I said, their work is so relevant for Agile. They should learn Agile. Oh, they'll learn that later, but I want them to learn the traditional predictive first. And I asked why, it doesn't seem like it would match their work. And they said, because I want them to understand project management first, right? So I want us to have the whole organization to have a culture of project management. And so everybody needs to understand the basics first. And that's, for me, predictive is what you should learn first and then go to Agile.
And it's interesting. I know within the PMO squad, we talk more about the focus on delivery as opposed to the technique.
Right.
They're both tools, and there's many more, right, within our toolbox to help us be successful. So it's interesting to hear organizations want to start one way and then perhaps go another. Understanding the concepts and the traditional approach, certainly I can understand that. But if you're going to truly be an Agile organization, there may not be any benefit to learning one and then transferring the other. So, but it's interesting. I don't know. I've never really thought about that transfer before.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of organizations are doing hybrid now because really the approach you take depends on the work you're doing, right? The project. Even within a project, you might do both. So I think that a lot of organizations are starting to realize that they thought they were going to go to Agile, but then they find that a lot of the work that they do just can't be done with Agile. So,
yeah, and that's where labels, I think, get in the way, right? Who cares what we call it?
Exactly.
You're executing to get the project done, right?
Exactly.
You have a purpose, right? And we're going to find out.
Purpose.
Yes. And then we're going to go execute to make sure that we achieve the purpose, right? And then I'm going to pull out maybe some Six Sigma tools or maybe some traditional tools, perhaps Agile tools, whatever tool you need. Let's use that, right? Why do we have to label things? I think it really gets in the way. I know Dmitry Pondomonarov, who was a guest on the show, who runs the Kanban zone. Dmitry is a Agilist and he's pro-Agile, but he said, listen, when they're building my house, I don't want them to do it Agile. Right? I want traditional project management to construct my house. Right? It's a matter of using the right tool in the right situation.
Right. And there are like the software development industry, Agile is perfect for that, right? I mean, so those types of organizations, I think that Agile, it suits them just fine to be an Agile organization. But other industries, it fits in certain projects, certain situations, but not all of them. So,
well, and I guess going back to Agile's roots, right, is it's not a project management methodology.
No.
It's a
mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset that's focused on software development and delivery.
Right.
And then project management was losing business, air quotes, to that. So they said, let's adopt this. Let's get Agile project management. And they have it in the PMBOK
I know, now
right?
It's in the PMBOK, right? And we have a supplement for Agile for the PMBOK. Yeah. And so people are worried about the new test coming out in January because there's going to be more Agile in there. So, but like I tell my students, because I teach both Agile and predictive, you need to learn both, right? So if you're going to be a good project manager, even if you're never going to be managing an Agile project or being a Scrum Master, you need to understand it because at some point you're going to be managing a hybrid project. So you better understand it.
Well, speaking of hybrid, right, let's talk training, right? Traditionally, training has been instructor-led. You're in a classroom, either on-site at your organization or off-site, and you get trained. But video is becoming so much more popular now.
Right.
How is that, as a person that's obviously within that industry, how has that changed?
So it's slowly getting more self-paced and on-demand. So I'm seeing, so for me at the University of Washington, I teach what's called the self-paced modality of the project management certificate program, which is a 9-month long program to get your certificate from the University of Washington for project management. So I teach the self-paced, which is not really self-paced because they have to wait for me to grade.
It's hybrid.
Which, sometimes I'm on vacation. I'm kidding. So anyway, it is self-paced. They get 4 months for each course. And that's a new thing that we started last year. And that has actually overtaken the demand for the cohort online courses. So the online courses used to be really popular, and now we're losing enrollment in those because everybody wants to do the self-paced. So, people are busy and they want to do things on their own time. They don't want to go sit in front of an instructor for 8 hours a day and listen to something that they're not going to really take in. So for me, when I teach my PMP certification courses, I've learned, from teaching at the University of Washington, I do what I call a hybrid certification training. So it's basically self-paced, but you also have access to me, and it's structured. So each week there are topics that you have to do. And then we have an office hours every Tuesday, and you have access to me through the discussion boards and email. So it's not the one where you're sitting in front of an instructor and getting lectured at. And it's not where you're just getting left out in the cold and you get 3 months and then, you're done. So that's something that I've come up with just based on my teaching at the University of Washington, that I think works really well because it allows them to be at their own pace, but also have a structure and access to the instructor.
Yeah, I like that approach too. It's taking that accountability,
right?
Putting it on the student,
exactly,
right? Because they pay for the course and they decide not to self-pace themselves, and they wait to the end, and perhaps have wasted money at that point.
Right, and so I still put a little bit of structure in there. They need to get through the topics each week, but at their own pace, right? Mm-hmm. So if they want to do everything Sunday night, fine, right? That's up to them.
And so this is within the university setting. Is this same sort of trend happening in organizations? Have you seen anything related to?
Oh, yeah. Video training?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we were talking earlier about the tool Articulate 360, which is a beautiful tool to do storyboards, things like that, and really interactive training with videos. So it's not just what we used to do, which was an instructor sitting in front of a camera and talking, right? Which is the same thing as getting a lecture. So now they're doing interactive animated videos with exercises and little quizzes in there and interaction with the learning. So,
yeah, we had. I didn't attend this, but I saw locally here in Arizona the AZ Tech Council just had their CEO retreat last week, and one of the speakers wasn't able to attend in person, and they projected an avatar for him to present, right, even though he wasn't there. So, I mean, there's all of these, I guess technology is bringing the world to us wherever we are and wherever the attendees need to be.
Right. It's wonderful. And the tools out there are so just really awesome and easy to use to build those types of courses. And so, in the organizations, they are going towards, and they're actually hiring instructional designers as a full-time job to build those videos, those educational videos. So it's instructional design is a big, hot career now. So
well, that's everybody wonders, hey, we're all going to be replaced by robots. We keep reinventing industries that require human intervention, right? So here's another example of a technology advance leads to more opportunities for folks
absolutely
to get into careers.
Right.
So, one thing, another, I haven't, it's been a long time since I was in college, right, and taken courses, but I think back to those experiences, and it was all lecture, as we've talked about, right? There wasn't video, there wasn't all that, but there wasn't anything about the industries, right? The industries didn't come in. There was no community aspect to the training, right? So I took economics classes. Well, we didn't get anybody from the economics industry that would come share industry information to us, right? All textbook. Are you seeing anything like that from within the project management community coming into the instruction and helping with the courses?
So I guess it depends on the instructor. Well, you've joined my courses.
Maybe it was a lead. Maybe I already knew the answer to that question.
So as an instructor, I bring in people that I know from the industry to do lectures. Like I have already invited Colin to come in and talk to my students at Stanford. You have come as well as some other friends of mine to do act as a board of directors for my students' presentations, which scared them to death, right?
Good.
I know they need that. They need it because, and I tell them, it's better for this to happen now while you're in school, rather than it being your first time in front of a real boss, right?
And we went easy on them. I mean, I hope they weren't scared by that, because imagine what the real world's like.
Yeah. So, when your guys' group, I think one of them had a little bit of a hard time, but the rest of them took it pretty well. But I think every time, and I've done this several times, the people I bring in, they give great feedback. And I wish that, just like you, 25 years ago when I was in school, I wish that I had that.
Absolutely.
I wish I had somebody who was pretending to be my boss come in and, act like that and tell me exactly what I was needed to hear. I probably would have excelled a lot faster than what I did, right?
I certainly would have been more engaged than I was, right? Yeah. Perhaps I may not have stayed out all night like Colin had shared with us that he may have done last night.
Is that why he's not on the phone?
I guess the other question I have, again, I've never built a course, might be in process of doing that now, but how do you go about building a project management course, right? I think you had mentioned that these universities didn't have project management courses previously.
Right.
So how do you do that? Right. And you don't have to share all the secret formula that you have.
There's no secret formula.
All right, then share
I think
away.
We all do it the same. I mean, I think all the courses are, there's only a few really good textbooks out there for project management. Kerzner's one of them. Yeah. And I'm not saying we base it on textbooks because, we're practitioners. We're not like the most, I'm not going to say it. Okay, so we're practitioners. So we practically build classes. And the most difficult part is to figure out what order you put things in. So what order should they be learning these things? Because as, somebody who has a lot of experience managing projects, for me, it all comes together at once. Right. So how do I teach them in the right order? So what do they need to learn first, and then second, and then third? And the way that we really did that, I was part of the team that architected the project management certificate program at the UW, University of Washington. Forget I'm in Phoenix. I've only been here for a year, by the way. And we just spent a lot of time talking to outside sources, and I'm now on their advisory board. So we had a lot of people like me, advisory board members that we could talk to who were leaders in the industry, and really find out what they wanted students to learn, because obviously they're the ones that are going to be hiring our students. And so that's really where we went, was what do you want them to learn? Right. And so then we took that and had a lot of conversations about how we were going to sequence the program and what content needed to be in there, because there's so much content, even 9 months isn't long enough. But yeah, we definitely had to make use of a lot of stakeholders, a lot of subject matter experts, because we don't know everything, right? That's one thing I had to learn.
Well, what's great though is you're creating it based on the need,
right?
As opposed to again, I've not written a textbook either, but you're using practical experience from leaders in the industry to help shape how to teach based on what their needs will be when that student becomes an employee.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I mean that's fantastic, right? I mean how great is that? What I wonder is how do students how prepared are they? I guess have you gotten feedback from students who've graduated, moved into a career now, and then come back to you and say, "Hey, thanks," or maybe not. But, but what does that look like?
They don't ever thank me.
How's it working from the preparing them for those roles?
Well, so it depends. The undergraduate students have never heard of project management, and some of them end up finishing the course wanting to be project managers, which I think is great. I told my program director that's my goal to churn out more project managers out of the business school. And in the certificate, the continuing studies, you get a wide range of experience. So you have the people who have been project managers and just want more. Something more on their resume. And then you have people who are just starting out and have, no experience whatsoever in project management. So we have to deliver to to all audiences.
Yeah.
And so some of them are bored, for a while in the course or in the program because it's too easy. It's something they already know that they do every day. But we can't tailor it to one audience or the other unless we want to say specifically, you have to have 10 years of experience before you can take this program, right? And then that just cuts off a huge audience. And we want to have a community of learners, so more experienced learners versus less experienced, and then they end up being mentors within the classroom, which I think is a great experience for them. That's the hardest part about teaching is the different levels of students, and you want them all to end at the same endpoint, right?
Sure.
All of them knowing the same thing, having the same skill set, but it's a huge challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned one of our key words, which is mentor. So I'm going to take a moment here to talk about VPMMA again a little bit more.
Let's do it.
So VPMMA is not a mixed martial arts program, although you may need to have some of those skills to be a successful project manager, but it's the Veteran Project Manager Mentoring Alliance. And the program, well, it's not a program, now it's a nonprofit organization. You can learn more about it by going to thevpmma.org. There's the website to go out there. But it's for active duty service members, veterans, and their spouses to be able to get mentoring from professional project managers on how to transition or advance their project management career post-service duty.
Fantastic.
So as you were talking there about these students, what I've come to learn over my approximate 2 years working with the military and organizations that are veteran-based is all branches of the military are teaching project management without calling it project management because they have to go work on missions.
Mm-hmm. It's a mission.
They have roles, they have duties, they have responsibilities, but it's their own language and it's their own culture and their own expectations. They then transfer out of the military, come into the civilian workforce, and they start talking project management in their terms. And in our mentoring program, what we do is we help those service members make that transition, right? Or if they're in their current career and they're looking to advance, we mentor to help them do that. So for all folks who are project managers with experience and you want to give back in our community, which all of us should be doing to help advance our profession, you can go out to the VPMMA.org, sign up to be a mentor. We have a steady stream of veterans that are out there signing up, seeking mentoring, seeking guidance, and we want to be able to support them and give back to them. In addition to that, we've developed some great partnerships along the way, and one of them is with IIL. We talked about Dr. Kersner, who works for IIL, and IIL will be hosting International Project Management Day in November. Eric Wright and I are the co-founders of VPMMA, and we're actually flying up in September to tape our segment that's going to air during that conference. So thank you to IIL. Judy Umlis and Dr. Kersner have been guests on the show, and through that relationship we've built, we have formed this great partnership now where VPMMA is getting this great exposure. And IIL has been extremely generous. You can, if you're an active duty or a veteran or a spouse, you can go out to IIL.com. You'll see a link there for International Project Management Day Conference, which is going to come up in November. And you can use promo code VPMMA and you attend for free.
Wow.
No cost for service members, veterans, spouses to attend that training.
Love it.
So thank you to IIL for everything they're doing to support not just our industry, right, but also the veterans that are out there.
Love it.
So that's my commercial. I could talk about VPMMA all day long, and I'll be talking about it a lot more at the golf event and then also at the IIL event. So stay, if you're listening, right, stay tuned to that and go in and help organizations with that.
I have to say that ex-military members have always been my best students in project management. And when I start to talk about risk management, they teach me.
Yeah.
So they're fantastic.
Well, and again,
they're fantastic.
we both, have relationships with individuals who are former military,
absolutely.
So we understand that.
Yep.
But also, I think the thing to recognize is in the military, everybody's trained to perform at the highest level possible.
Right.
Because really, failure presents a problem.
Yep.
Right? Missions have to go well because you're dealing with life and death situations. And another thing we've found through our mentoring is the struggle into the civilian world for these service members where the civilians may not have the same dedication or commitment to the cause.
Right.
And they may not be performing collectively at the same level they were in the military. And they have to integrate into that team. Mm-hmm. And that's often a challenge.
Right.
And they've lost the authority and direct responsibility where you're told to do something and you did it in the military based on rank. In the organization, you may not have the rank and folks may not want to do what they've been asked to do. So the influencing and motivating skills that may not have been necessary in the military are certainly more important to them in the civilian world. And that's where the mentoring program helps, right? As we get out there, we talk, we bring culture and language and skills and techniques, interviews. In the military, you may not be interviewing for your next assignment, right?
Absolutely great.
But in the real world,
you have to interview.
So a lot of our mentors have talked about doing mock interviews with their veterans. So it's been a great experience. And
teamwork, too. They're really good at teamwork.
Yeah. Listen, if I have two people who are both comparatively strong on their resume, and one was a military or a veteran, former military, and the other is not, I'm probably going to lean towards the veteran because of the commitment to service, team over self, commitment and dedication to excellence. And to me, that's what I want on my team. I want strong individuals like that.
I agree. I mean, somebody else you probably have to bring along and get them there. The military, their guys or girls are already there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So that was my commercial about VPMMA. We'll get back to the show. Thank you so much for hanging in me on that. But anytime anybody says mentoring, I always jump on
You got to
VPM.
jump in with your commercial. I love it.
All right. So back to, I don't want to focus everything you do or our discussion on training because that's not all you do, right? You do more beyond just the teaching and instruction.
Right. It's a large part of what I do, yes.
But there's Hildebrand Solutions, right? That's out there doing consulting work. Do you want to share a little bit about that as well?
Sure. So I've done a lot of consulting, about 20 years worth, like I said in my introduction. And in the last 10 years, I've really focused on project management. So now I'm at the point where I've got a program, that I've sort of built where I go into an organization and who's at what we call a low maturity level. So, no processes, no standardization, nothing around project management. We're doing one-off projects, right? I build simple solutions for them to start standardizing project management. And when I say simple, I mean, we're not talking about a huge guidelines and books about, like guidebooks or manuals about how to manage a project. We're talking about just bringing us up a little bit in our processes and starting to do things the same way, maybe creating the same one methodology or at least one methodology per department. And getting towards what Kersner calls, I love Kersner, what he calls informal project management, where we have the support, but we manage our projects the way we know how to do it. So as a project manager, if I want to use Outlook tasks to manage my schedule, that's what I do. I manage my team the way I want to manage my team. But I do have, certain things that I have to do for the organization because, of course, as an organization, we need to collect data. We need to do things, some processes the same. To be more efficient. And, you and I talk a lot about projects drive strategy. So, we need to ensure that we're doing that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then you talked about this all recently at the local Phoenix PMI chapter recently.
Yeah. Yes.
Is this something you're looking to share in other chapters and interested?
Absolutely. Would love to. Yeah. Yeah.
And share a little bit more about what that talk was specifically, in case anyone's out there listening and they're from the San Diego chapter. And they're like, hey, we want to know more about
I'll
that.
go to San Diego, no problem.
Yeah.
My favorites, one of my favorite cities. I have a lot of favorite cities. So I took about an hour at the PMI Phoenix chapter to walk the folks there through my methodology about how I do this in an organization. So starting out talking about, and we're going to bring up Kersner again, Dr. Kersner, I actually use his model to look at an organization, perform an analysis of the organization, and then use his model again to work up what kind of actions we need to take in order to get a little bit more mature in our project management methodology and processes. And then I walk them through the steps that I take. So there's about 9 steps that I take with an organization. And usually you'll get to about the 3rd level. The 5th level is where you have the centers of excellence and we're driving strategy through our projects, things like that. Most organizations are good with a singular methodology for a while. So that's where I want to get them. And I walked through the steps on how I do that. It was an interesting talk.
Yeah, it was a good presentation. I think everybody enjoyed that. And again, it's a different perspective to have somebody who's an educator and also a consultant, to bring both of those worlds together to present that to a chapter full of people of varying levels of experience. Right. And also not just project management experience, but PMO leadership experience.
Right.
And as you said, this may not be for the highly advanced PMO,
right,
but an organization who may not have any formal project management.
Right.
They have to start somewhere, and this is a great opportunity to work with you to help them do that.
Yeah, I mean, small business or mid-sized business that hasn't done anything to standardize their project management and wants to, who's realized, that becoming more efficient and standardizing their project management will help them drive strategy. And that's really where we want to be, right? And if we're doing one-off projects, and you and I talk about this all the time, if we're doing one-off projects, how do we collect the data? How do we know what we're doing? How do we know how that project is doing and what kind of results it's getting? So we want to get to a point where we can use our projects to get better at what we do.
Yeah, and of course, I think every organization has accidental project managers out there.
Yes.
And we also get data from the pulse of the profession that projects are only successful at best 50% of the time. So you take 50% failure on formal project management, and then accidental project managers who are probably failing more than that. And if you're not capturing that data, how do you improve?
Right.
So to me, the same within the PMO squad practice, right? We're looking to capture data to make informed decisions.
Right.
And a lot of organizations out there are great at tracking sales, right? They're great at tracking manufacturing, right? But they're not really good at tracking delivery performance.
Yeah.
And that's where we really want to help organizations get stronger at that.
Right. And accidental project managers, that's how we get a lot of our practitioners, right?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. You're really good at your job. You must be a good project manager, right?
Right. That's how it happened for me, right? My boss asked me how the project was going, and I was like, the what? I have no idea what you're talking about. But little did I know, right? If we think back to my whole life, it's what I've always done. We just had the board of directors meeting for VPMMA a few weeks back, and everybody introduced themselves because it was our first board meeting. And everybody was saying, I've been a project manager for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. And I said, I've been a PM for 51 years. I didn't know it maybe the first 20, but that's what I was doing.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way my brain works, as if it's an organized communicating method, right? I mean, that's how I operate. My wife's not always happy with that, but it's, it's just the way we're wired.
Right. Exactly.
So we're getting close to wrapping up the show, and obviously Colin didn't rejoin us. That's a technology thing, so we'll work to get Colin rescheduled at another time. Unfortunately, I was really excited to see the dynamic between Debra and Colin because both of them are outgoing and type A personalities, and I think it would have been a really fun show. So maybe we'll have Debra come back and have this show at another
I'll come
time.
back, hang out with Colin.
Yeah. So, Debra, if there anything else that maybe we haven't covered that you want to hit on, or ways that folks can get in touch with you if they have questions or want to have you come talk to their organization?
Sure. Probably the easiest way is to go to my website, which is hildebrandsolutions.com. And you can reach me there. I've got a list of things that I do, specifically what we have talked about today. And just know, if you have me come and train your organization, I do make an effort to learn your organization before I even think about how to train your staff. So that's one thing where I am a little bit different than most corporate trainers. My clients are always surprised to hear that that's included in the price, but it is.
Yeah, awesome.
So yeah, that's important to me. I like to be effective.
Yeah. I wonder why. But yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much for being on, and
thanks
also
for having me.
Dealing with our technology challenge and not having your co-host on here, your co-guest on.
Well, I got to talk the whole time. How exciting is that?
Well, I knew that wouldn't be a problem. We've worked together long enough. I knew we'd be able to carry the show.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, thank you so much for joining in. Our next show will be Thursday, September 5th. We're going to have Andy Jordan joining us from Honduras, and Ray Reagan will be here in studio. We also have a great lineup of guests coming up throughout the year. Barbara Troutline, I had mentioned, she'll be coming on, as well as Rich Maltzman, Jim Stewart, Laura Burford, Carol Osterwheel will be joining from England, and a whole bunch more, of course. Also, a reminder, these shows are recorded, so be sure to subscribe to Project Management Office Hours podcast on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, whatever it may be. And, of course, thank you to our sponsors, PM Master Prep and the PMO Squad. Don't forget the fantastic offer that PM Master Prep is offering. If you go out to their website, pmmasterprep.com, use promo code PMOJOE, and you will get 20% off of all their services. And also, of course, from the PMO Squad, in addition to the purpose-driven PMO, they can satisfy all your project management needs and challenges, whether it be staffing, training, implementing your PMO. And of course, the purpose-driven PMO is at the core of what we do. So that's it for now. Office hours are closed. Until next time, I'm PMO Joe, and you've been listening to Project Management Office Hours.